Our hair is still on end after a tantalizing trio of races at Atlanta Motor Speedway and now to the first road course of the year at Circuit of the Americas. We'll talk about NASCAR officiating. Is Atlanta indeed among the best? And the driver with his elbows out. Devin had exclusive video there. We'll have it all here on 5 to Go. Hot Rod Lincoln. Yeah, buddy, put on the driver's suit. Make sure the belts are tight. It's time to turn right and left here after 2 straight races of high-banked super speedway racing. Welcome to episode 302 of the 5 to Go podcast here on GoPRN.com and Apple and Spotify. And now, Devin,
YouTube.
Boom. That's right. We're on YouTube today. Unfortunately, though, we are not joined by Dan Elliott. He is in a transit, doing some business. Dan's always hustling, okay? So he could not make it today. He's in a bad cell service zone. But I'm your co-host, Doug Turnbull, here from the Performance Racing Network's play-by-play team. I got my first race, all of PRN's first races of the season at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and our first ever Truck Series race in collaboration with Motor Racing Network. It's basically taken like MRN's commercials and their structure, but using PRN people to put on the race. And it's the NASCAR Racing Network, and it's the tough trucks of NASCAR. So you're hearing the NASCAR Racing Network, the tough trucks of NASCAR. That's our tag out on that. First ever time that a lot of the PRN crew had called truck races. It was actually my second truck race to call. It was so great to do it at my home track, Atlanta Motor Speedway, with the crew there. Had a great weekend standing on the scissor lift in turn number 2. Had excellent campers next to me, Kobe and Jimbo and those guys. They were having a big old time there. And just a word to anybody that camps out near our PRN turn announcers, all right, or MRN turn announcers. We are thankful for your generosity, but you can't beer us while we're on the job. Okay, you can't beer us now. As soon as I put the headset down and the race is over, not on the clock anymore. Okay, but and anyway, that's where I'll leave that. But it was great. I had the Kroger hospitality out to my left again. It was a good old time out there. Joined on the line, of course, by the guy that makes us look good. All right, he's our multimedia enthusiast, our roving racing journo from University of North Georgia. There, he is so debonair, guys, that he has hero cards he switches out depending on the winner of the race, and the race is coming up. Devin Kupka, how you doing, my brother?
I'm doing good. I needed to pick up some hero cards on Sunday because the hero cards that I was using in the past were from like the first year of the Gen 7 car. So I needed to update something new. And here we go. We got Christopher Bell here, the 2024 DeWalt paint scheme behind me. But, it was a fun weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway for Better Health 400 weekend. I had a blast there all 3 days. And now we kind of segue until that month long until I go to the Food City 500 at Bristol Motor Speedway. So
till we go
month off, but it's going to be a busy month. We got a lot of big things coming up in UNG athletics.
That's incredible. You're doing such good work there. As you're in the home stretch of college, my friend, home stretch, summer semester, you will be done and set out into the wind. Okay. And so we look forward to seeing what your next opportunities are. And you'll be at the Food City 500. I'll be on pit road there. So we'll be hanging out. I love the time we got to spend together this weekend, Dev. And Momo and I downsized to one car, okay? And you gave me a ride to the track on Saturday. So I love getting to kick it with you. We got IHOP after the race, just like we saw some great race fans there, okay? That was a lot of fun. So just thank you so much for your hospitality, my brother.
Yeah, of course, anytime. I had a good time riding with you on Saturday. And how about that IHOP on Saturday night?
That hit the spot after a long, long day. I think I was in the turns from like 1 to 7 or 1 to 7:30 at least. I don't even know exactly. It was all kind of a blur by the end of the day, but a great blur at that. We're going to dig into the Atlanta weekend starting now. Okay, here we go. The first off, we had Cup qualifying. Well, we had Truck and Xfinity qualifying Friday. Oh, that was good for the Hardy race fans. It was a chilly weekend, no doubt. The Hardy race fans that came out, they got to see a few cars on the track there on Friday. If you did not catch it, it's here on YouTube. It's also in all the pod spaces as well. It's not on GoPRN.com, but all the other podcatchers. But I got a chance on Friday to hang out with William Byron. It was a media event. There weren't a ton of Atlanta media that showed up, and I rolled in there to the Stats Brew Pub in downtown Atlanta, Marietta Street, and got to do about an 8-minute one-on-one with our Daytona 500 champion there, and he had some good stuff to say. I mean, William keeps it pretty close to the vest, but check that out. It's a bonus episode, so we don't call that one episode 302 or anything like that. Got a chance to do that Friday. Devin, I know, was down at the racetrack there trying to keep up with the race cars. What did you see? Friday's kind of a chill day. Like the garage is open for a long time, but there's not a ton on track. So what were some of your observations?
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot going on, but there were definitely people there on Friday for Truck Series and Xfinity Series qualifying on Friday at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And, we didn't really get that many driver availabilities. I think we only had Justin Allgaier and Austin Hill that day. And, I will say Austin Hill, when it comes to him talking about the surface at Atlanta Motor Speedway, it just feels like it's the most different opinion out of a lot of people, because a lot of drivers will say, oh, well, as long as they keep this package or whatnot, it'll always be super speedway racing. But I don't know, Austin Hill,
I think a
I
lot
guess
of
his
drivers are
opinion
backing
differs a
off of
little
that.
bit from others.
I think drivers are backing off of that idea. I think they're realizing the handling is mattering more and more. And we'll get to Austin Hill in a moment because he's starting to make historic moments now at AMS. But Truck and Xfinity Series qualifying, those commenced, and then we went right into Saturday Cup qualifying. And what were you noticing, I guess, on Saturday's shows, Dev? Was there anything that stood out to you? I mean, we saw Ryan Blaney get his first career pole at Atlanta, and he had a gray race car that kind of looked like the Gray Ghost to me. It was pretty cool, kind of blended into the surface from my high view there. But it was everybody but Kyle Busch in the top 10 was a Ford.
Yeah, and that was the most, well, not this, it's honestly not surprising because of how good the Fords have been at super speedway qualifying, whether it's Atlanta, Daytona, or Talladega. They've just been really good at doing that, and it wasn't a surprise. But I think the bigger surprise is you only had one Ford finish in the top 10 in the Amateur Health 400 on
Wow, yeah, I
Sunday.
didn't
I think
realize that.
which is crazy, and that was Ryan Blaney in fourth. Everybody else was either a Chevy or a Toyota at the end of the day on Sunday. But qualifying, I mean, you saw the Toyotas, they qualified in the back, and then they kind of came back up forward throughout the race and had a couple finish in the top 10. So, that's what happened in the fall race, I think, at Atlanta Motor Speedway last year, was where we had the Toyotas. I think Hamlin, notoriously, the lawsuit
Yeah,
stuff came out, and then qualified last, and then kind of
yeah.
did it again this weekend.
He should, yeah. Well, and I asked Christopher Bell in his post-race availability. Spoiler alert: Christopher Bell won the Cup race there, Amateur Health 400. But I asked him, I think it was the last question they took, or one of them said, "Hey, you guys seem to kind of overcome your qualifying gremlins at Daytona, but I didn't feel like you ran as well. Then you come to Atlanta, qualify in the back, and here you are winning the race." And he basically, instead of saying, "Yeah, we're either trimmed out for qualifying or trimmed out for race trim," he said, "I don't see the correlation anymore." He goes, "Sometimes we qualify badly and run well. Sometimes we qualify badly and run badly." Sometimes, it's been all over the place. And I think that is, in a way, kind of true. The second place finisher, Carson Hocevar, whom I got to do the Q&A with at the Raceway Ministries tent back on Saturday, he started 26 and drove right up through the field. Christopher Bell only led one lap. Actually, Carson Hocevar led 0, but Christopher Bell only led one lap on Sunday, and it was that last one. We'll talk about the caution stuff in a moment. But it seems like there really wasn't a consensus, at least on the 20 camp, about being just trimmed out for handling versus qualifying. It changed, and also your car handles totally different when you're back in the pack versus when you're out front or near the front. But we saw Connor Mozak be a first-time pole winner ever in the Truck Series, just as Daniel Dye was at Atlanta Motor Speedway a year ago. And he led some laps and mixed it up toward the front. But Devin, in the end, big boy came to play in the kids' sandbox. Tell us what you saw for the truck race there, including our winner, of course.
Yeah, that was an exciting end to the Freight 208 on Saturday at Atlanta Motor Speedway. You had Kyle Busch, Stuart Friesen, two wide, kind of a photo finish there at the end, and that was pretty tame. Honestly, out of any of the days, it just felt like Saturday was the tamest day. Which, normally in a NASCAR weekend, is if the truck and Xfinity race are chaotic, you're going to just have kind of a stale Cup race on Sunday. But that wasn't the case this year. But it seemed like it was a pretty calm race there. Stuart
And
Friesen
trucks?
almost had Kyle Busch
Yeah.
at the end, but Kyle Busch was just leagues better than everybody else because he was able to make moves on the super speedway. As much as people say, even including in myself, about these super speedway races, it still takes skill to go out and win these races.
Oh, yeah.
Although there's a higher probability of somebody else winning. But sometimes, some drivers have ultimate skill. Austin Hill has that, and Kyle Busch in the Truck Series, he definitely has that because he's able to make moves between whether it's the low line or the high line on the track. He's able to weave in and out and just make moves on super speedways without having to have people behind him to push him.
Yeah, he would see people do this like whiplash dig slingshot through the turns, and then he would just leapfrog right around. If they did it at turn 3 and 4, he would do it to them again at turns 1 and 2. It was a timing thing, and it ended up working out for the trucks, but it almost didn't because Stuart Friesen almost stole that win from him, and that would have been a cool underdog story. And Stuart Friesen, I think, has a 3 or 4 year winless streak in the trucks. He's not won a lot of times, but in the end, I wanted the guy that was far and better the best than everyone to win. I hated to feel like I'm rooting for Kyle Busch in a Truck Series race, but I sort of wanted that. In that race, Jack Wood out of the McAnally-Hilgeman team won stage 1. Kyle Busch won stage 2. Kyle Busch won the race, dominated, led 80 laps. Connor Mozak, your pole sitter, led 30 laps. Those were the two big lap leaders, and then it was kind of spread out amongst a few others there. But that race, it was really a control of one truck. Before we move to Xfinity, and we promise we're getting to Cup, we're going to get to cautions and get to a few other stories from the weekend and from motorsports. Need to mention Kyle Busch, Spire Motorsports. That's the team that bought Kyle Busch Motorsports. His sponsor was Gamebridge. Now, you saw amongst the different Spire vehicles this weekend, Gamebridge, Delaware Life, 1001 Group. All right. The 1001 Group owns all of those insurance brands. Okay. News came out Monday that TWG Global, which is part of this deal, right? They're also part owner, I didn't realize, of the LA Dodgers. TWG Global has now combined and pretty much launched TWG Motorsports. And they bought the majority share in Spire, in Andretti Global, in the Cadillac F1 team. All of that is affiliated under one giant motorsports umbrella of the same company. So no longer, we had heard last year that Gamebridge had bought into, or that 1001 Group had bought in to Spire. But now from this, what I'm reading here from the reporting from AP and from Racer.com and such, they are now majority owners in Spire Motorsports. I want to feel like, hey, that's a good thing. There's scalability and leverage. But sometimes when you're just a small ornament on the corporate tree, Spire is no longer a small company. Carson Hocevar, in that same Q&A I did with him, I asked him about goals, expectations, and they said, well, they came to us and told us they expect all 3 cars in the playoffs, and I'm paraphrasing what Hocevar said, but he goes, I thought that was a little much, but he goes, that is a great mentality to expect to be there. He said that Spire went from 20 employees or so 3 years ago to 180. Now, they also added 4, sometimes 5 truck teams. But that is a big jump in numbers, and even from last year to this year, Devin. So Spire Motorsports is no longer the small dogs. My only concern, Devin, and I would like to see if you share the same thing, is now that you're part of this big motorsports thing with all these tentacles that's also part of a big giant insurance company conglomerate, I just hope that certain things that are important at Spire don't get minimized, if you will. You know what I mean? Like, I hope that you don't get the private equity feel coming out of that. So I don't know. What do you think about the news of them being affiliated basically as part of a larger motorsports organization that includes F1, IndyCar, and IMSA?
Well, I think it has that connection. I think we talked about this, I think a year or maybe even 2 years ago, that they have that connection with Andretti when it comes over from the F1 side of things as well. Because he was making I think it was an Andretti Autosport or something like that. Because they
Right.
were involved in IndyCar, and then
Well, they're one of the main teams in IndyCar, and they're now called Andretti Global. Yeah.
yeah, Andretti Global F1. They were trying to get into F1. Not sure if they finally got into F1 or not.
Here,
But
let's be the all racing experts for everybody here, okay? They got into F1 after Michael Andretti stepped aside from day-to-day operations and ceded it over to the head of TWG Motorsports. Okay,
well, now
suddenly the doors open. So that's why I'm saying that Spire Motorsports are essentially teammates to a future F1 program, 2026 Cadillac F1.
yeah, and so you have that with TWG. Motorsports. You have that kind of that connection there in IndyCar, F1, and NASCAR. I wonder when the teams are going to potentially all rebrand to represent that, because now you see they have a majority stake in Spire Motorsports. They have a truck team. They don't have. I don't think they have Xfinity,
They don't.
and then they have Cup. So it's interesting because I know there was an episode a five to go. I wasn't last year, but it was. I think it was 2 years ago at the end of the season that we talked about that. But now with Andretti out of the picture a little bit, kind of changes things.
Yeah,
Changes things up a bit.
there was a point where I thought that Spire Motorsports would become Andretti, but that name is starting to decrease a little bit. Dan Taurus, by the way, is going to be the head of TWG Motorsports, and he's been a longtime partner of one of the co-chairs of TWG Global. So TWG Global, I mean, literally co-owns the Dodgers, the behemoth in Major League Baseball. All right, the team that's like, yeah, we'll just sign Ohtani. Yeah. So this is part of a huge conglomerate. Let me list off, instead of, I was going kind of off of recall here. Listen to what's in the motorsports portfolio. You ready? So the 3-car Spire Motorsports Cup team, 4-entry truck team, Wayne Taylor Racing, one of the top, if not the top teams in IMSA sports cars, and Walkinshaw Andretti United from the Repco Supercars Championship in Australia. All right, so they've got Cup, trucks, IndyCar, IMSA. Oh, and I didn't mention it'll be Andretti Global, of course. So Andretti Global has teams in IndyCar, Indy, and XT. That's their Xfinity series, if you will, and Formula E. All right. Then you've got the Cup and Truck Series, and you've got Cadillac F1. I've named like 7 motorsport series. All right. Spire's got 2 of those. And and there are a bunch of different teams from Andretti Global to Wayne Taylor Racing and Waukesha, Andretti United, that all have their own branding. It could be they keep, I mean, this insurance company, 1001 Group, has multiple insurance brands. It could be that they allow Spire to keep their brand, but it's a whole new ball game here. And keep your eyes open, ladies and gentlemen. Private equity, and I'm not saying this is exactly private equity, but private equity and investors, if they're not already on your favorite race team, they're coming. And you just hope that lifts the sport and not corporatizes it anymore. We can't make it any more corporate. And I look, Kyle Busch won the truck race. I went Spire, Gamebridge, and went down that rabbit hole, but I thought it was important. This is, to me, is a big story. It's not a surprising one. It's a big story.
In honor of Dan, show me the money.
Yes, Dan Elliott. I wish he had phone service today, because Dan would tell you. Let me take Dan's place here for a second. In the 1980s, the late 70s, early 80s, there were 2 guys in particular that came into NASCAR with buckets of money. All right, Warner Hodgson, who basically created his own team within Junior Johnson that Neil Bonnet drove for, number 12. And they sponsored other stuff too, but Warner Hodgson, and also J.D. Stacy. And these guys came in again, different era. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but they were alienating. The teams ended up not being a success story. I mean, Dale Earnhardt left Rod Osterland's team because it was a J.D. Stacy team. All right. And it didn't end up on top. And when it becomes only about the money, it doesn't always go well. All right. So just cautious. I'm happy people are interested in NASCAR. I hope it elevates the NASCAR brand. I hope it makes Spire a better team. Just keep an eye on that, because that team went all in. $40 million charter, right? All in. Okay. So trucks won by Kyle Busch. Let me just buzz through the top 10 real quick so you can hear about your peoples. Kyle Busch, Stuart Friesen. Third was Tyler Ankrum, who kind of rose toward the end of that race. Bailey Curry finished 4th there for Nice Motorsports. Chandler Smith was 5th. Caden Honeycutt 6th. 7th went to Ben Rhodes. His teammate Ty Majeski was 8th. Jake Garcia out of Monroe, Georgia, finished 9th, and Grant Envinger was 10th. Then we had a brief respite in that Saturday doubleheader. By the way, I love the Saturday doubleheader.
Only one of the season.
I wish
Xfinity and truck.
I wish that trucks and Xfinity, instead of having the trucks run on Friday nights, drawing this thing out, I wish they would run Saturdays more often. All right. Cup qualifying in the morning. You could fit, if you really wanted to start early and go late, you could fit all the qualifying for everybody in in the morning if you wanted to. 3 hours back to back to back. Truck and Xfinity. Put us on the radio all day. Let's go. But anyway, the second part of the doubleheader saw a race that was a Richard Childress driver winning a pole, Jesse Love, after winning Daytona a week ago. Then it saw another driver lead all but 17 laps. Devin Kupka, what was your view of the Bennett Transportation Chevrolet of Austin Hill, hometown sponsor, hometown driver up front? Was it boring? Was it exciting? Were you waiting for something to uncork? What'd you see?
Well, I think it's just the domination of Austin Hill and being able to survive there at the end, because we had a few cautions come out towards the end of the race. But you got to give a lot of credit to Austin Hill. I mean, he's just the man at Atlanta Motor Speedway. 5 out of the last 7 races, and 7 races, that being on the current configuration of Atlanta Motor Speedway, that he's won. So he's 5-2 at Atlanta Motor Speedway, which is crazy to think about, because that's 5 wins and 2 you didn't win. Which is a crazy record in motorsports.
Yeah.
So you got to give a lot of props to him. He knows how to work this racetrack. I mean, this is his track. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes some of the super speedway races could be a crapshoot, but it takes skill to do something like that, to have a stat line like that, win 5 out of the last 7 races at a track. You've got something going on. It could be definitely something in the setup, but it takes driver skill as well. And Austin Hill certainly has that, because, I mean, just look at that. I mean, that's just not something that you can easily do.
No, well, there's nothing easy about it there, but he makes it look easy. He even said when he gave up the lead to Jesse Hill at one point, he was trying. Now, I've never seen a driver in their post-race as confident as I saw Austin Hill when he walked in with that swagger on Saturday night. He walked in there after a longer victory lane celebration that Christopher Bell had for the Cup race on Sunday. My man, it's like he won his first race. But no, it wasn't like he won his first race. He was celebrating like he won his first race. When he was on the mic, he's like, yeah, we did that. Yeah. And he talked about how he basically was trying stuff up front with timing runs, how long he needed to be in and out of the throttle. And Jesse Hill launched around him, and then he went around and launched around him right back. That's they're in for it. Not that when they come to Talladega, though, because Talladega, Hill has not won. Hill has not won at Talladega before, but they're in for it at Daytona and Atlanta there, where Hill had won 3 straight Daytona races up until mechanical trouble last week, and now he's won 5 out of the last 7 at Atlanta Motor Speedway. So Austin Hill was your winner. Justin Allgaier, I don't know how that guy did. I could have sworn he led a lap. 0 laps led, because he kept not passing him at the start-finish line, I guess. And Justin Allgaier had a chance there to throw a block on Hill and did not. He finished second. Third went to Eric Almirola. Sammy Smith notched 4th. Nick Sanchez was 5th. Jeb Burton 6th. 7th went to Daniel Dye. Leland Honeyman driving for the Cope Family Racing Team, Derek Cope's team, number 70. He was 8th. The rookie William Sawalich 9th. And Harrison Burton notched a top 10 there. And he actually looked pretty racy there on Saturday. A struggle for the Georgia drivers, though. Brandon Jones crashed like 2 different times, still rebounded to 13th. Ryan Sieg was in the running for the win. He got cleaned out. We're going to talk about this on the last lap. He was 20th. Garrett Smithley ran toward the back, 24th. Mason Massey was 28th. Kyle Sieg was 33rd. We got enough Georgia drivers in the Xfinity Series there, Dev. Well, now, last lap, walk us through what happened. There was basically a crash on the back straightaway and in turn 3. And what happened Saturday was different than what happened Sunday.
Yeah, it was. And the thing was on Cup Sunday, when in the drivers' meeting, Elton Sawyer said that NASCAR messed up the night before by not throwing that caution happening in turn 3 and the Xfinity Series race on Saturday night at AMS. And, that's going to be an interesting discussion we're going to get into, Doug, because I got some thoughts on that. But, I think Saturday night was the right call to let him race towards the end. I know there's some odd hits, but we'll get into it. But maybe there needs to be an implementation of a new overtime line.
You're the only one that thinks that. I just want to put that right there. Okay, but let's look. Hey, real quick before we get that, we'll get to the Cup race Sunday and work into that. The number one story of this weekend was great racing all around. And you're really going to hear it when we talk about Sunday's race. Austin Hill, by the way, won both stages and the race, 5 playoff points for him. So no one else got playoff points. No Cup drivers came down and did that either. One mention too, Eric Almirola was third in this race. He's going to run about 9 races in that 19 car for Joe Gibbs. Christopher Bell, Sunday's winner, and I was surprised by this. I was surprised how deep, I guess, Devin, that Eric Almirola's involvement is with Gibbs. But Christopher Bell said that Eric Almirola is instrumental in Christopher Bell being a better super speedway racer. And this results show it, because Bell has kind of been on that Larson route, not very good at finishing those races. And Eric Almirola, he said, is tremendously helpful in the competition meetings and getting them all up to speed. So props to that. I thought Eric Almirola was just joyriding there, 9-race Xfinity schedule and semi-retirement. And instead, he's really contributing to that team. So that's pretty cool. Now, Sunday's race, pole sitter was Ryan Blaney. The Penske cars were hooked up. In fact, Blaney was the worst handling of the 4 Penske or Penske-affiliated Fords. Josh Berry was up there leading laps. He led 56 laps, second most on the day. Austin Cindric, 47 laps led on the day. Joey Logano finished 12th. He could never dig out of a track position loss there. He finished 12th, 83 laps led on the day. And Ryan Blaney actually only led 1 lap that entire race. I did not know that. He won the pole, led only 1 lap, and Blaney ended up finishing 4th. But it was a race that basically we saw the Penske Fords up front, and then between stage 2 and 3, there have been some syncopated cautions there. And so cars that were mid and back of the pack decided to stay out between stage 2 and 3, and that put the Penske Fords back in traffic. Cindric was able to drive back to the front. Blaney was able to drive back to the front. Then he got wrecked, and then he still drove back to the front, but Joey Logano was not. So Josh Berry won stage 1. I'm not so sure that isn't the first stage win of his career, but it's certainly of the season, young season. Kyle Larson kind of popped out of nowhere to win stage number 2. Then we get toward the end of the race, and in the thick of things, you had Carson Hocevar, elbows out. Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney. Ross Chastain led 25 laps. He was a big player at the end of the race, making some big, bold moves over there. Kyle Busch led 13 laps. He had kind of dug from the back and was part of this stuff. And then coming to the end of this race, you had Bell, Hocevar, and Larson. Larson, before we get to the last caution, Larson drew some controversy, Dev, because it looks like from the center lane, coming off of turn 2, he cleared himself and pinched Austin Cindric into the backstretch wall. Cindric slides across the track, cleans out William Byron with him, and Cindric, second week in a row, gets wrecked right at the end of one of these races, having a very dominant car. But it comes down to, we rack them up for overtime. Christopher Bell, Carson Hocevar, Kyle Larson, they're all right next to each other there. Going into turn number 3, there's a big crash involving Josh Berry and some others. Ryan Preece was one of them. And Christopher Bell was the leader by barely when that caution light came on. And he gets his first win of the year, first win for Joe Gibbs since June when Bell won in New Hampshire. We'll not say that one more time. I'm tired of hearing it, okay? Devin, that's first off, we're not going to talk about the caution yet. What was your take on the Ambetter Health 400?
I thought it was another great Ambetter Health 400, similar to what we had last year. I know we'll get into the finish a little bit later, but it had the potential of having another 3-wide photo finish at the start-finish line again with Hocevar, Kyle Larson, and the eventual race winner, Christopher Bell there. And, I thought it was overall a really good race. A lot of 2-wide action we saw. So we saw a lot of shifting and moving. Still had that fuel saving, it looked like, out there a little bit in stage 1 as well, but we saw a lot of good action at the track on Sunday. And, Atlanta Motor Speedway starting to become one of the best tracks on the circuit right now. I don't think you can deny that. It's one of the better tickets you can get. 1.5-mile super speedway brings a different aspect to super speedway racing, because some of these moves you can't make at a Talladega or Daytona. Talladega being so big, you'll get hung out to dry if you're not in the draft. And then Daytona, things are a little tighter there. And here at Atlanta, things come very quickly. So, Atlanta Motor Speedway, that's what makes it so unique right now. And that really fed into what it was a great race on Sunday.
Well, it certainly was. And there were a bunch of different leaders. I mean, we saw guys leading the double-digit laps. There are a bunch of different leaders. You had, they don't have it on this page, all those specs. Where was it? Okay, there were 11 cautions, 63 laps. There were 10,579 green flag passes, or 52.1 per lap. Now, Daytona had like 16,000 and something. Okay. That was also a race 100 miles longer. And there was a race where they were 3 wide a lot of the time, and the lines were just doing this, back and forth while they were fuel saving. This was more like people getting runs and then launching into the lead and then giving it up and coming back again. 50 lead changes. I think it was 50 lead changes. And I think 14 drivers that did that. I don't have the driver number in front of it. Race just under 3.5 hours. I think that's an ideal time for a cup race too. Keep it under 4 hours. I'd like to seem to be closer to 3 hours, but 3 hours, 27 minutes is pretty good. And the ratings for Atlanta, by the way, about 4.5 million people watched, a 1% increase from the year before. And Devin, you were both in the pits. I know you normally go to the press box, you go back and forth. Really a pretty decent crowd for it being barely 50 degrees at race time.
Yeah, it was a really nice crowd for the Better Health 400 on Sunday. You can't complain about it. It looked good on pictures that I've seen, and being at the track, that looked good. I'd say it's probably perhaps the best spring race attendance wise since the 22 race, which was a jam packed. That place was packed.
Yeah,
when they first reconfigured the track a few years ago. But I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens in the summertime, because it's in that perfect time zone from what I've heard when it comes to things for that Saturday night race. That kicks off the in-season tournament. So
it does.
I'm excited to see that night race come back at Atlanta.
It seems like there's a lot of interest. I saw a lot of people on social media just interested in being there, right? It seemed like there's just a lot of people that I need to go check that out. You saw Big Boy driving the pace car. Jeezy was at the race on Saturday, all right, the rapper Jeezy. But the one that really drew a lot of attention on the PRN broadcast, because Brad Gillies from Texas, and because the people running PRN are older than me. And I mean, I like him too, but it's ZZ Top and Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, who gave the command to start the engines. And one thing, and I didn't think about it too deeply until they mentioned it on Fast Talk, the PRN talk show podcast that you could hear on goprn.com and the podcatchers. But Brad Gillies said it was so cool because he didn't have to yell, "Driver, start your engines." He's like, let's get it done. Drivers, start your engines. It was so like, he's like, hey, I'm so cool. Like, I don't even need to yell it. I thought that was such a great way to start the weekend or start the race, I should say. So
some people just have that aura.
They do, man. I need to get Big Boy on the mic though. They could have had a Big Boy concert instead of break dancing, but
You say Jeezy was at the race on Sunday?
He was. I saw, and I didn't know. I don't think he was there officially. I think he wasn't a race official, like an honorary official, like Big Boy and Billy Gibbons were. He was just in the stands or up at a suite or something, because I saw him put video on social media.
That's the same artist that did Put On with Kanye, right?
I think so, yeah. So I'm not as deep in the Jeezy universe as I am the Big Boy universe, Boomiverse, if you will. So
but it's the same time period, though, right?
It is, yeah. But Big Boy and Outkast are better, so don't have time for Jeezy. No, I'm just kidding. He's fine. I love that Mark Martin's such a huge fan of Gucci Mane that he finally got dropped in a Gucci Mane song.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, by the way. Different story. Here are the top 10 at Atlanta. Christopher Bell led one lap. First win in half a year. Carson Hocevar. Shall we stop right there, Devin? Carson Hocevar. He finished second. Delaware Life Chevrolet, number 77, sophomore driver. And he had at least two drivers wanting to sort things out with him post-race. Devin, you got some exclusive video that's on our 5 to Go podcast Facebook page. What did you see unfold, and what did the driver or drivers say after?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. They get down to pit road. So let's set this up a little bit here. First incident, Kyle Busch, early in the race, end of stage one, Kyle Busch runs into the back of, because I think Hocevar might have brake checked him a little bit, runs into the back of Kyle Busch at the end of stage one, gets a little bit of damage on Kyle Busch. He's very upset about it. And then there were two other race incidences you saw with Ross Chastain and then Ryan Blaney later in the race. After the race, get down pit road, cars all parked, Hocevar gets out, then Chastain gets out. Chastain takes Hocevar, doesn't grab him or anything, but they don't talk next to the car. No, they talk in the infield grass, so a little further away from pit road and just in the grass, just kind of them two out there. And they're talking for a solid 2-3 minutes out there. And Chastain's not happy. Now, some things I did hear afterwards is that, Chastain has that partnership with Hocevar, or Hocevar has that partnership with Chastain, so maybe that might have had a little bit of influence on it.
They both drove for Nice Motorsports. All right. And Chastain still drives a little bit for Nice. And so Hocevar, excuse me, guys, Hocevar was a bit of a protege. Right. And much like we saw this happen, people forget so fast. We forget. I think it was either Daytona last year or Daytona the year before. I think it was Daytona last year. Raja Caruth made a move in the truck race that was a low percentage move. Bubba Wallace is one of his mentors. Makes sense. Fellow African American drivers trying to navigate the sport. Bubba Wallace confronted his mentee on pit road, and you would have thought that Caruth had wrecked Bubba Wallace. Wallace wasn't even in the race. All right. So put it under that. And I'm sure something happened on the track, and I didn't see the contact between Hocevar and Chastain or whatever what I heard happened was that, and I saw this happen. I saw Hocevar make the move. So what I'm assuming the contention is Hocevar going 3 wide middle and leaving Chastain out to dry on one of the late restarts there instead of working together to push ahead and then go for the lead. And I think that may have been more what to do than him trying to wreck him on the track. So mentor, mentee, they're having to talk out there. What else did you see, Devin, and in here?
Yeah, and then also Blaney came over to Hocevar after the race as well and talked with him for a much shorter time, but it was more like a minute or so. But had a chat with him, and then he came and spoke to us in the media, and he was kind of nonchalant about it and kind of dismissive in a way when it came to a lot of what we were asking him post race. And honestly, if you look at his social medias, Doug, I showed you that Instagram reel earlier. He feeds off of this a lot, and I think he could be the next potentially villain in the sport and next potential big star in the sport because of the social media presence that he has online.
So that's an interesting point. Now, can you explain one of the things you saw? And you don't need to put it up on the screen or anything. It's a little tricky here being on YouTube, but can you explain the thing that you really saw that saw him leaning into being the heel?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I guess he streams on Twitch and he does iRace streams or whatnot.
Yeah.
And I guess he was racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway. I guess I said sometime after the race. I don't know. It looks like it might have been last night or something. But he went on Twitch and then he shared a clip of the stream on his Instagram feed, on Instagram Reels. And in the clip, he was racing Kyle Busch, although it was just somebody in the paint scheme. And he was like, nope, I'm not going to let you get underneath me. And he just kind of played in that role. And then they played the clip of Busch getting mad at him on Sunday in the Cup race. So, it's kind of funny that he's leaning into that. I mean, some of the social media posts you saw on X that, oh, I got the Chili's, I'm leaving. And then, he's proud of all the group of guys. And it's just he's kind of coming off as that guy. The thing about it, though, is I believe Carson Hocevar has got some talent behind him.
There's no doubt.
He really does. So
none of the Kyle Busch thinks so too, by the way. No, there's no denying it. There's no denying it. Carson Hocevar is one of the next great ones if he keeps it together, right? I mean, maybe it will involve having to move from the 77 one day if it doesn't launch there. But Carson Hocevar, ironically, is reminding me of Kyle Busch. A lot of people said it's interesting that Chastain pulled him aside because, and true, because Chastain had a line of drivers ready to kick his butt just 2 years ago. But there's a difference. Ross Chastain is still kind of like Carl Edwards was. Ross Chastain said, hey, I don't care. Like, I'm here just to race and win. But he always tried to clean it up and put a smile on his face. Carson Hocevar on TV said the right things, apparently. But in the media gaggle that you were a part of, said, we're not here to be in a boy band together and go play on the playground afterwards. I'm here to win races. That reminds me of the shrub, as they called him back then, Kyle Busch. All right. So let's not forget, but that's the whole point. I want these drivers mad at each other. I want them to a certain extent leaning into it. I want it to be genuine, though. I do think if Hocevar needs somebody to give him the benefit of the doubt, that the bank of GAF is going to be empty from those drivers, about him if he keeps that up. Someone's probably going to give him a PR talking to about leaning in too hard on that. But it reminds me of Kyle Busch, just giving the bow, playing the villain. And I wonder what the crowd reaction will be, Devin, if Carson Hocevar were to win. Do you think that the crowd likes Carson Hocevar. What do you see on social media? Are people kind of like, yeah, stick it to him, or do you think they think he's a jerk?
I'm not sure, honestly. I mean, he might come off a little bit as that, but I think it'd be good to the sport because the sport needs a driver like Carson Hocevar right now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So in my books, as of right now, he really can't do anything wrong because the NASCAR needs a driver like this, and they got that driver incentive program where I don't know if you saw the payout on that, $7,500 for the lowest, and then a million or $2 million for the highest performer driver. I wonder where Carson Hocevar is going to rank upon that, but
highest
I think
performing
Carson
in
Hocevar
marketing.
is doing a lot of good for the sport.
Yeah, highest performing on the marketing appearance side. Not highest performing or lowest performing on the track. Okay, that's totally separate from that. And yeah, I one question I didn't get to ask, by the way, you said, let me back up. You said the sport needs a driver like that. Sport has a driver like that. His name's Denny Hamlin. And Denny Hamlin, it's interesting that they were the two that were my stage guests or our stage guests at the Raceway Ministries tent. I just
Well,
want
you
to
got
say,
the one that's going out, and then you got the one that's coming in.
yes. Oh, yeah. You need more. You probably could use a couple more, right? And you need Ryan Blaney's too, that are even when he's his most upset, which is when he has his helmet on, afterwards, yeah, I'm a pretty chill guy. Yeah, you need that. You got to have them all.
Moms for Blaney?
Tell me about Moms for Blaney, Dev.
No, it's just because I remember one point we started comparing him to Casey Kane at one point when he went on that winless drought, and then you think about it in the looks department, it's kind of the same deal.
There's no denying that. Just like you can't deny Hocevar's potential greatness behind the wheel, can't deny that Ryan Blaney's a stone cold fox. Okay, so write that down. Respond right here. Is Ryan Blaney a stone cold fox? Okay, I mean, whatever, man. It's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. By the way, let me just work this in, because when you think of people that are stone cold foxes, you think of them crushing Chipotle bowls. Ryan Blaney.
So, what is it, like a stone? Like, I can't picture what that looks like.
Okay. You're taking it literally. I'm using like Boomer Gen X. I'm just saying he's hot. That's all. That's
okay.
Yeah, because hot and cold mean the same thing. Yeah, so I'm just saying, there's no doubt Ryan Blaney is a good-looking chap. Okay, do you know what a chap is?
The only thing that comes to mind with Stone Cold is Stone Cold Steve Austin.
He
from the,
is really
wrestling.
Not Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's just their body types, totally different. Okay, Ryan Blaney has got a Chipotle bowl. $15.55, Ryan Blaney's chicken and steak burrito bowl. Corey LaJoie, you talk about good social media. Corey LaJoie, who got crashed out in this race, by the way, in the 0-1 stacking pennies Ford. Corey LaJoie put a video up, said, hey, I decided to try the new Ryan Blaney bowl. He goes, salty, a little beef, and spicy. I thought that was good because it's playing off of Blaney being pissed off at Ross Chastain. But yeah, so that's what's interesting, though, is that's a personal partnership. I don't think you're going to see Chipotle on the race car or anything like that. But I want to add in, and Devin, you're all over this kind of stuff, more than me. You've got Chipotle coming in. You were at the press conference on Friday, I think it was, maybe Saturday. Rick Ware Racing, Arby's, was it 12 race sponsorship or so? And I know they're paying pennies on the dollar to what Arby's used to pay to be on Matt Kenseth's Xfinity car, probably. But 12 race sponsorship, Cody Ware. They were on the 51 car at Atlanta Motor Speedway. That's a big company. People know that. People don't know what, and I'm not digging on it. It's a huge company. People don't know what Delaware Life is. They don't know what National Debt Relief is. They know what Arby's is. And Arby's is now in a race car. 12 races, Cody Ware.
I want to say this. I don't mean to backtrack too much here, but with Daytona 500, seeing Denny Hamlin in the National Debt Relief car, that kind of hurt in the inside. Because that's just, I just feel like that's just not a good pulse check when it comes to certain things.
I asked Denny Hamlin.
At the Daytona 500. Not some random Phoenix race.
But they probably put up a huge, Joe Gibbs wouldn't have put that on the car without a huge return, but it's like, oh my gosh, you've got Sport Clips. They were on the car at the Clash. Why wouldn't they want to be the Daytona 500 sponsor? Please, I get what you're saying. It's like the Sport Clips Toyota makes sense. You go, the National Debt Relief Toyota. But hey, I'm glad. Now, by the way, National Debt Relief, if you're listening, 5 to Go needs sponsors.
Hey, yeah,
and we're glad, and forget us, we're glad you're in the sport. All right. But it's like,
yeah.
gosh, of all the things, Denny Hamlin has had the most recognizable car of the last however many years. And you go from FedEx to this one that's not even a full season sponsor. Mavis Tires and Brakes, not back with the team, as far as I can tell. I asked Denny Hamlin on the stage Sunday, hey, we know FedEx is gone. You had a great relationship. Who are some of the partners that we can expect? And I'm not expecting you to break any big news here. And he said, well, National Debt Relief, thankful for them. Yahoo, Sport Clips. Those are the ones he named. I don't think he named any others. Yahoo is a tie-in somehow with Toyota, and I don't really get it exactly. They're owned by the same heartless private equity company, Yahoo is, that my former employer is owned by the way, Apollo Global. So, but did you see the Yahoo scheme, by the way? You love how it had the Yahoo all the way around the
I
car.
like that Yahoo's in it, but yeah,
But I don't think
I
it's
like that
coming
Yahoo's
directly
in
through
the.
Yahoo. There's some tie-in, just like Sirius XM. There's some Toyota thing going on. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, Siri. I like the Sirius XM sponsors, and they still have that NASCAR channel. The Sirius XM one's kind of interesting because I think maybe the aspect that they're sponsoring in NASCAR, not just because of NASCAR radio or whatever, is because think about people traveling to the races. A lot of them travel a couple of hours to a race, which means that's easily in the market for a satellite radio right there because
Yeah,
if I'm going up to Charlotte for a day race, or even Dega for a day race, we're going to lose the Atlanta stations. But if I have XM, Sirius
sure.
XM,
You stick with
you're all
it.
set.
Now, I will
You don't have to
say,
change your dial once.
if you like a local radio station, all of them are streaming online. You can get their
Well,
apps
yeah.
or the website. Play. MRN doesn't even have an app anymore. You can just play through the NASCAR app or go to mrn.com, and I'll do that. And you turn the screen off; it still plays in the background. So it's way easier to stream or do, like you said, satellite radio than to try to fiddle with keeping signal or not. So that's a great point. But yes, but it is weird with the sponsorship. So back to this discussion, and then we'll keep going through the top 10. Ryan Blaney, Chipotle sponsorship, that was big. And where did we get to Ryan Blaney from? Go ahead.
Well, Ryan Blaney, I was just thinking about this. Maybe on 5 to Go on the Facebook page, maybe I'll give my personal review of his Chipotle bowl. Now, I don't do guacamole though, so I'm gonna have to take that off.
Does his have guacamole?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, what I saw in the Corey LaJoy video.
ooh, Devin, you need to try. You need to get back on the guac train, bro. Guac.
Hey, when I was in Indianapolis last year, I went to Chipotle near our hotel, and because normally what I get at Chipotle is the steak. I just get steak and white rice and lettuce, and they didn't even charge me for like the bowl. They only charged like, oh, you're only getting that, and I only paid like $5 for it. Which normally I always get charged like 10 because it's a bowl or whatnot. But
Interesting.
I'm really basic when it comes to Chipotle.
Well, you know what I do? So I go veggie. I don't like eating a lot of meat. All right, I go veggie. I go brown rice, black beans, the fajita, peppers and onions. And then when it gets to the salsa, all that stuff that comes with it, I just say run the table. I go like this, just like a roulette table. I go run the table. Stack this sucker up full of so much goo and juice that I won't even know there's rice in there. Like they have trouble closing the lid. It's like when I go to Willie's, I'm getting all these vegetables put on it, and they're trying to wrap the burrito up. They've got to call like an obstetrician in there to figure out how to swallow that baby. I mean, it's big. So, yeah. Now you know how we eat. Now you know why I have 2 or 3 chins and why I wear face yoga pants called a beard. Come on. That's it. But yeah, but I love the partnership there. Ryan Blaney, Chipotle, and you've seen Arby's car. You got a Chase Elliott Prime car, and there's some other sponsors. Even DeWalt stepping up. They were not prominent in the sport for a while after spending years on Matt Kenseth's number 17, and now they're a major player at Joe Gibbs Racing and went to Victory Lane on Sunday. So we like seeing brands you can recognize. Devin, the quickest. We'll get to that in a second if we have time. Let's go through the race results. We're still clawing through that. So Carson Hocevar is runner up there. Dev, you think it's good that he's playing bad boy there? We'll see how drivers treat him at Circuit of the Americas coming up. Kyle Larson, I mentioned some controversy, as they would say overseas. He finished third. There was a compilation going around on social media, by the way, of all the times people got Larsoned by getting pinched over the wall, including Chase Elliott, by the way. Ryan Blaney, who got spun off the, basically Carson Hocevar said it was a bad bump. His nose wasn't aligned with Ryan Blaney's, and that spun Blaney out in turns 1 and 2 right in front of me, and it caused this lazy, slow spin, but Blaney had to go to the back. Thankfully, he didn't cut any tires, stayed on the lead lap, and he drove all the way back up to 4th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who also was involved in enough mess, he pinched Chase Elliott up into the wall coming off of turn 4. He was 5th. Denny Hamlin did not lead any laps, but he came from 37th to 6th. Very good run for the Yahoo Camry. Kyle Busch came at one point, was in the back too. He finished 7th. Ross Chastain led 25 laps, finished 8th. Bubba Wallace, I don't know how this dude didn't lead a lap, Devin, especially in stage 1 and 2. That Columbia teal and hot pink Toyota Columbia Outdoors machine was all over the place, up high, down low, middle. He could make any move he wanted, but it just didn't shake out. He finished 9th. And how about it? Second week in a row, Dev, John Hunter Nemechek finishes 10th. He finished 5th of the Daytona 500, and old JHN joins YRB, young Ryan Blaney, to be the only 2 drivers in the first 2 races to finish in the top 10. How about it?
Yeah, good start of the season for Legacy Motor Club, and that's something that they've definitely needed to start the season off with is a good start, because with Daytona and Atlanta being the first 2 races now, there's that opportunity for maybe the smaller teams to go rack up some points early on, and now we go Super Speedway and then road course, which could be another one of those wild cards in a way. So we'll see what happens this weekend.
And that's why when
we
you
get
look at the back
closer
of
to
the pack,
Americas, but
that's why when you look at the back of the pack, some of the teams that know that this is their better chance to get playoff adjacent and maximize because their speeds are equalized. Eric Jones, he got crashed on the back straightaway, 31st. Daniel Suarez got crashed in turn 1, 33rd. Noah Gregson, same Suarez crash, 34th. Cody Ware, 35th. Cole Custer, same turn 1 crash. Surprise, all of them crashed on lap 183. He was 36th. Corey LaJoie, who's running only, I think it's 8 races this year, 38th. That's a tough pill to swallow there. Justin Haley was never a factor all day. Last car on the lead lap, he got damaged in that last lap crash, 24th. So Josh Berry won stage 1, but the Wood brothers, 2 of their last 3 wins, and that spans 14 years, by the way. 2 of their last 3 wins were on super speedways at Daytona, right? Josh Berry wins stage 1, leads a bunch of laps, gets crashed at the end, 25th place. Tough miss for them. Todd Gilliland led 7 laps. But he had a cut tire, couldn't come back from it, finished 15th. I mentioned Joey Logano, he only finished 12th. I need to mention, too, the guy that finished 13th, Dev. You know where I'm going with this. Michael McDowell, and another one of the insurance products there in Aspire car, Group 1001 Chevrolet. Michael McDowell was the first car to have trouble Sunday. End of stage 1, power steering issues. I remember radioing back to our race director, Laura Beth, or going on the Top Back channel. Hey, 71's off the pace. No one had a peep of trouble. Power steering issues. Goes to the garage in the stage 1 break. Goes to the work area of the garage. Not on pit road. Not on the damaged vehicle policy either. Some people thought that erroneously. 6 laps down, but then they start crashing a bunch. He gets 6 consecutive free passes. Don't give up on your dreams, kids. He finished 13th, a lead lap.
No, that it is impressive. 6 consecutive free passes, because he was the only car a lap down forever at AMS this weekend. And yeah, you gotta give a lot of props to Michael McDowell to fight and get that 13th place finish.
It's really incredible. And he's finished 11th and 13th in the 2 races to start the year. It's gotten decent points. That's what you need to do when you're that 71 team. I don't think he's right now, as we speak, on a team that was as fast as his team a year ago, 34. That could change, but you got to maximize those. Circuit of the Americas will be a big time this week. By the way, too, there was only 1 point in this race that Michael McDowell was racing somebody to be the top car on his lap. And it was when he was 2 laps down, and a popular number 9 car who had gotten crashed was also 2 laps down. And they were telling Chase, hey, man, you just be the top finishing car in your lap, then you can get the wave around, blah, 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 or the free pass. And Chase ended up on the lead lap, too, eventually in 20th. But Michael McDowell outran Chase Elliott's damaged car on that lap, got the free pass, then got another one. Just don't give up on your dreams, kids. That's really cool that he was able to do that. There were no cars that missed this race, by the way. The 39 showed up, and that was the deal. And coming up this weekend in COTA, there will be only 37. So we're kind of getting back to normal. Only one open car this weekend. Now, Dev, instead of being like the other podcasts where we got to go, oh, yeah, the race is great, we got to talk about the cautions. We're not going to talk. We're going to spend just a couple of minutes just hashing this out. I wish Dan Elliott was here. Former president, Gresham Motorsports Park, had to help make tough decisions like this. We talked about cautions in the duels, cautions, the Daytona 500. They kept it green. They kept the Xfinity Series race green. They crashed at turn 3 of their car broadside across the track. And then Sunday, they say, hey, we did that wrong, and they stuck to their guns. And Sunday, it wasn't a crash in the back of the pack. It was a crash near the front. Turn 3, Josh Berry wrecked hard. Other cars, hard, dragging parts. And they throw the yellow. And very likely, Hocevar Larson would have made with Christopher Bell a classic finish like we saw a year ago in February at Atlanta. Dev,
if that caution wasn't thrown, I think he would have gotten another 3-wide photo finish to the Better Health 400.
That's what I'm saying. So, Dev, you are in the minority from things that I've listened to and heard that this race should have stayed green. So, give me your best shot.
I think it should have. And maybe something NASCAR is going to have to adjust something when it comes to this overtime or the final lap stuff. But in this situation, they got to let him race. I mean, the 500, they let him race. And then there's just instances. Like I go back to the Brickyard 400. NASCAR does need to get more consistent on it. But let's go to the Brickyard 400. I believe it was Ryan Preece that spun. They let him race there, which they should have thrown the caution in that instance. I think sometimes NASCAR needs to make a business decision. Whatever is going to produce the best finish.
And I think that they still do that and have given themselves the wiggle room to do that. The issue is when you have if the field is still coming, all right, Josh Berry did not crash from 25th. He crashed from the front, or from not the very front, but like 6th, 7th, 8th. It was right. Denny Hamlin said it was right behind him, and Hamlin was 6th. And you just don't, and you have tighter quarters at this racetrack. There's less places to go. You can't hide on the skid pad on the back straightaway like you can at Daytona. Even the Brickyard, Ryan Preece, they didn't throw the yellow because they kept waiting for him to get going. They're like, it's just a flat tire. Certainly he could start rolling again. And they should have thrown it before. I mean, he was there for so long. They should have thrown it before Blaney took the white flag, because Blaney was, going to win that race, right, and ended up being Larson. So they definitely, there have been inconsistencies. They're trying to figure out who they are. They keep swaying, NASCAR does, back and forth between social media pitchforks and classic racing and safety. All right, there's like 3 buckets. Classic pure racing, which is closer to safety, by the way. Classic pure racing says there are no green, white, checkered finishes. There are no free passes. This is a 500, 400-mile race. You race 400 miles. That's it. Indy 500 is like that. Here's one point that Kyle Petty made on Fast Talk this week. I believe, it's Kyle Petty. NASCAR has set the expectation with race fans by giving them green, white, checkered finishes that they are almost entitled to a green flag finish. Therefore, that's why you get all this outrage when they don't get one. And if Kyle Petty's of the opinion, get rid of all of it. And if it finishes, it finishes. Actually the crash that would have ended the race, it still would have ended under yellow. It would have been the Austin-centric crash. So I don't know that I'm saying you're going, hey, keep it green, basically, at least in this case and in most cases. I would say case by case basis, err on the side of trying to let them race back, but
how about
don't let them drive through.
I got a solution here.
Oh boy.
Reinstate an overtime line.
Oh.
Now it only applies, or the final lap line. It only applies on the final lap, and it's a line once the drivers or the leaders come out of turn 2, the race must end under green.
Yeah.
Where they still race to the checkered flag, because if there's a wreck that happens in turn 1 and 2, then maybe you do need to throw the caution because the drivers they're still going to be coming full
They're
speed
still good.
going into turn one for the most part.
They're still going
But
to be
if they
coming
wreck
full
on the
speed
back
into
stretch, you
turns
got
3 and
plenty of time
4.
to slow down.
No, but they're still good. If you crash in turn 3, let's say instead of 6th place, it's 1st place. The Daytona 500 in 2021. If I remember correctly, Logano and Kozlowski crashed into turn 3. Hard, vicious hit. Chase Elliott almost caught Michael McDowell, and they threw the yellow somewhere in turn 4 or something like that. You had the whole field, or what was left of the field in that race, coming. You can't just say go for it and I hope they miss them. It's really tough. If they crash in the back and nobody's coming, you let him go. If you're Riley Herbst on the last lap of the Daytona 500, he didn't even fully spin out. He got sideways. He got going again. But when you have a wounded car, and you saw like with Ryan Newman in Daytona in 2020. Now, granted, there was nothing you could do there. The finish line was 300 yards away or something. If you have a damaged car already and then it gets hit again, that's where you're going to see drivers really getting hurt. And it's just tough. I don't want to be in I would never want to be in NASCAR's position of choosing this. I think they have committed, Devin. I'm sorry, I cut you off there. I think they've committed to trying to let them race back instead of just throw the yellow flag. And now here's another thing too. Some people will say, a lot of people have said, well, every caution, no matter what, should be a caution. Hold on. They said, why would you keep it green here but throw a yellow for Ryan Blaney? You threw a yellow for Ryan Blaney because he spun from the lead pack and he smoked the field like lazy smoke, tire smoke, can't see. And also you didn't know if he had cut tires and was going to be stuck on the bottom of the track. He could have popped a tire on the back straightaway. You throw a yellow when that happens, 100%. You maybe don't throw a yellow if that happens on the last lap because he kept going. You see the difference? If it happens 25 laps to go or 10 laps to go, you yellow it. You keep it green if it's the end of the race and it doesn't look like he's blocking the track and the field's not going to come back by him. It's case by case. You can't just have a rule, I think.
And I think another thing too, another alternative solution you could have to this is apply the rules that you have in the Clash and the All-Star race where the race must end under green.
I've never understood the rule about if you take the white flag, the next flag ends it. I didn't even know that was a rule for the longest time. Let me come clean. I got something else in our final thoughts to come clean about too, but let me come clean here. The first ever K&N East race at Gresham Motorsports Park in 2010, won by Ty Dillon, by the way, in the number 41 Waffle House Chevy. Classic. Okay. There was a crash on the last lap and the yellow came out, but they had not taken the checkered. And I was on the PA system. I was on, co-announcer. And I thought that we were going to have overtime. And it had to be clarified to me that when there's a yellow on the white flag lap, that ends the race. Now, you're opening up a can of worms there, Devin, but I agree. Let them keep re-racking and keep going if we're going to have all these overtimes. Why is it arbitrarily we're waiting for the white flag to the caution? Oh, wait, the caution light came out right before Parker Kligerman took the white flag, or right, so we got to start them again. No, if it comes out, it's over. Or it comes out, it's not over, and you keep going until whatever. Now, there's a whole different can of worms there, and then they're just going to keep wrecking more and more, but to me, that's better than having these, let's go back to the video and see when the caution light came on talk. I agree with you on that. So we may not agree about what should have happened Sunday, but we do agree, A, NASCAR should be consistent, and B, if you really want to take care of one problem, I don't know which other ones we create, B, then let them race back, let cautions never in the race, basically. And I guess the only time where it would end the race is if, it would be a question of did they cross the finish line or not the start finish line. So anyway, Dev, AMS, we pretty much said it before, but I want to make sure we're clear, especially after all this officiating talk. Can we pretty much agree that this has become the most exciting race? It's at least in the Cup Series.
Yeah, I think you could say it's up there with one of the most exciting races of the season. I really do. I think it's Dale Jr. I know Dale Jr. said a few years ago it's the hottest ticket in NASCAR, but or first time race take him there, which it's a good racetrack, good facility. unlike the other super speedway tracks, Daytona and Talladega, you can actually see everything no matter where you sit. You can sit on the bottom, you can sit up at the
Yeah.
top, you can sit in the middle. You can see the backstretch anywhere you sit in that facility. And AMS is becoming a must attend venue. And I know some people don't like super speedway races, but the racing here is incredible. I think it really is. It's just different than Talladega and Daytona is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it really is providing some of the best racing on the circuit right now. It really is. I don't think you can. I feel like you can't really say that it's not just because of the type of racing. I don't think you can say that it's not the best or not is not one of the best.
And here's one thing that affirms in me is the drivers are coming around on this too. And we're not going to go play a montage of all the terrible things that people said when the reprofiling was announced at Atlanta, but the drivers are coming around on it. Denny Hamlin said to me, of the super speedways, Atlanta is the blend that you want because you felt like it was in the driver's hands, and you felt less that way at Daytona and Talladega. There's stuff they can fix about these cars that they can only implement. In fact, they at Daytona or Talladega, if they wanted to, they could still keep the exact same package at Atlanta and tweak the aero package or horsepower package at the other bigger super speedways. So when Denny Hamlin is even saying that, now that doesn't mean he loves it. It just means he's comparing it to the two that he really doesn't like how they've become. That's still saying a lot. And what we got to watch at Atlanta is so they could not stay on each other in the turns. They had to back off constantly. You can't push someone all the way around there in a cup car. But really, you couldn't in the other series either. As the track continues to wear out, as you mentioned earlier, Austin Hill saying that the handling really matters. What kind of racing will there be at Atlanta 5 years from now, 3 years from now? Will it still generate the same level of excitement? And what I'll say is enjoy it right now. Just enjoy it, and we'll see what happens later.
Not to sidetrack here, but did you hear the rumor about Kansas Speedway?
Stop with that. That is not true. That came from it came from the Daily Downfords, right? That's what it's.
Oh, did it?
It was a
from
meme.
them?
It was bullcrap. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say because I heard that and I'm like, there's no way Kansas Speedway is gonna do that.
Freddie Kraft, spotter who's on Door Bumper Clear, said, "Oh, I heard some rumor out there." The rumor was on the Daily Down Fords. So the real account is Daily Down Force, and that's a podcasting network, and it was called the Down Fords. I had a former NASCAR reporter send a text to me saying that, and he didn't even, he was just seeing it on his feed and sharing. It wasn't like he was retweeting or anything like that. I mean, okay. I'm saying that's my take, is that it's just, if it's really being talked about elsewhere, all I would say is if they were actually going to do that at another track, I won't even say the one they were saying there. You already said it. Then they need to do something to change Daytona and Talladega to make them their own. Okay. And I will quote Brad Gilley from PRN, when something he said on Fast Talk a long time ago. Just because he goes, just like I told my daughter with perfume, just because a little bit is good doesn't mean a lot is great. So
if we were covering the NBA, we just got sentled right there.
Got what?
There's a big parody account that on X
called Sentinel.
Dang, I just saw that somewhere out there from somebody.
Exactly. People just make crap up.
That's embarrassing.
I fell for one a couple years ago. I think it was 2021 Daytona, where account that looked just like NASCAR. They had one little character change in the name NASCAR. It looked exactly like the NASCAR account, and they said Daytona 500 has been postponed to Monday. I reposted it. I called WSB I sent a package into WSB to play and didn't make it on the air. And then I realized, and then someone at PRM, maybe it was even Doug Rice, said, Doug, that was not real. And so I undid the deal, deleted the deal, all that stuff. And it never made it on the air, but I did repost it. There was another one too. And I reposted something. I can't remember what it was, but it was this year. And Garrett Smithley texted me. And he said, hey, dude, I think that's a parody. And it was something, I don't remember what it was, but I quickly undid it. It's easy to fall for. I'm a reporter, supposedly. It's easy to fall for. So, all right. So Atlanta, We rank it up high. My judgment of this race, I'm disappointed they didn't get to race it out, but my judgment is not affected by an officiating decision. I was on in the whole time. And yes, I'm biased. I got to see it in person and I got to yell about it on the radio. It was great. We now, before we pull forward to Circuit of the Americas, actually need to talk about an announcement made Sunday morning in Atlanta. And I know we've gone a little long today. Even without Dan here, we've gone a little long. It's a lot to discuss. And isn't it amazing, Devin, how much more we could say when we see it in person? Right?
Yeah.
It's like it's in you. It became a part of you for that weekend. Corey Heim announced as a development driver for 2311 Racing, which honestly I thought, wasn't he already? But I guess it wasn't official that he was. And so they're going to have him run the number 67. So not the number 50. The 50 car Team Amerivet Racing is going to start fielding and have for several races there, the former Floyd Mayweather team. They're going to run the 67 machine. And Corey Heim, I think he's going to debut. Oh, I should make sure I have my facts right. I think he's going to debut at Kansas with them, right? And he's going to also run a select number of races for Sam Hunt Racing and Xfinity, starting with Circuit of the Americas this weekend. So I'll pull that up to make sure I have the debut right. But Dev, what do you think about this move? Because it raises some good questions, but some interesting ones for me.
Well, I think it's a good opportunity for Corey Heim to get his kind of feet wet in the NASCAR Cup Series, because he's a driver that's been wanting to get into the NASCAR Cup Series for a little bit now, because he's been stuck down there in trucks and Xfinity as well. So I think this is just an opportunity for him to go out and get his feet wet in the NASCAR Cup Series. Yeah. I think that's really what it comes down to.
And it will be Kansas, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, but it will be Kansas that he takes the 67 for the first time. Go ahead.
Yeah, but it's just an opportunity for him in the Cup Series to get going. And, he's like one of those drivers that's been down there for a little bit. And this is really getting his first big break, first crack at it in the Cup Series at the premier level.
Well, for sure. And Booty Barker will be the crew chief of that team. Bubba Wallace's former crew chief, too. So good pairing there. Now, Corey, so 2311, keep in mind this new charter agreement that they didn't sign, by the way, but that they're operating under this new charter agreement. You're capped at owning 3 charters. The 2 teams that have 4 charters, Hendrick and Gibbs, are grandfathered in. I would think at some point they have to relinquish one of those to really keep it fair, but whatever. Those teams are grandfathered in, but 2311 and Trackhouse, they're capped, and the others too, at 3 charters. What are you making a face? You don't like what I said?
No, no.
See, now we're on YouTube. Everything matters, okay? So if I see you furrowing your brow, okay. But there, you capped at 3 charters. So Corey Heim is a development driver for 2311. Now, 2311 doesn't have any old drivers, so to speak, right? They've got, Bubba Wallace, who's 30-31, Tyler Reddick, who's right behind him in age. Tyler Reddick was like the big free agent get. They went and swiped him out of Richard Childress' nest, okay? And then Riley Herbst is very young and brings an armored car full of money. Bubba Wallace has a bunch of sponsorship tied to him, and I think has merited keeping a cup right. He's not making the playoffs a lot, not winning a lot, but he's running in the top 5 and the top 10. If he didn't have any sponsorship and he was sponsored by Yahoo all the time or whatever Toyota thing, it may be more in question. Where does Corey Heim go is the question. Okay, so we're developing this driver. And sometimes you get a development driver and you put money on it. It's like Corey Day with Hendrick Motorsports. So where the heck is he going to go? Bowman is questionable, but okay. So where does Corey Heim go is the question. And I have some thoughts on that, Deb, but I'd like to hear yours first.
I think it's going to be tough. Where the Toyota ride's at, 2311, they're locked in at 3. You got Joe Gibbs at 4. I mean, Hamlin, how long is he going to be? From what I feel like, he still has a little bit left in him.
Yeah.
I think he still has a couple of years there. I know I've heard you mention before Briscoe on a 1-year deal, but I think that turns into a multi-year deal, and I think he'll be a Joe Gibbs for years to come.
And I didn't say definitively 1 year. It's just what I've heard is that his leash is shorter. It's not like they went out and signed him to 3 or 4 years, whatever that is. That doesn't mean it wouldn't happen and he wouldn't stay, but it's just. Briscoe, I don't think was brought in to say he wasn't brought into Gibbs like Tyler Reddick was brought into 2311 is what I mean.
Yeah. And really, Gibbs is going to be there for a while. Bell's
Yeah,
going to be there for a
yeah.
while. So those rides.
Someone wrote me. I'm sorry to interrupt. This guy Zach. Oh God. Anyway, this guy Zach emails me all the time, and he fixates on this stuff, and he'll send me this long list of silly season ramblings that he's just making up. Basically, well, what is it? What do you think about Johnny Sauter? And I'm like, okay. And he immediately, and so I wrote to him. I wrote to him basically what I'm about to say to you. Is what I think is this could be a contingency for. And he goes, well, I don't know, Ty Gibbs. I know it's his grandson, but how much longer is Coach Gibbs going to live? I mean, and then he won't be safe. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Ty Gibbs is the co-owner of the effing team. I mean, like, just stop with that. Ty Gibbs, much like Cole Custer, is going to have a seat at the table for as long as he freaking wants. All right. So, yeah. So, like you said, Ty Gibbs ain't going anywhere. I don't know where I left you off. Sorry.
No, you're good. It's tough. I'd say the two weakest links would be Bubba Wallace at 23-11 and then Denny Hamlin.
Yeah.
But who knows how long they're both going to be there for. I could see Wallace being there for a few more years. Same with Hamlin. So I think it's really tough where you're going to put, unless you put him in an open car. But
or maybe you're not going to
maybe Legacy Motor Club. Maybe Legacy Motor Club. I don't know.
And Legacy only has 2 full-time teams, so in theory they could expand without losing a driver. Where that charter comes from, I don't know. Let me go look at the charter tree real quick. Are they growing on it? They're not. But here's another thing. So Denny Hamlin to me has made several comments, and they were after Daytona and coming into Atlanta that just made me kind of point at my nose a little bit. And I didn't ask him when I did my Q&A, I didn't ask him what's next or anything like that. I just didn't feel like I was going to get much out of that, I guess. He told Dale Jr. on the download in 2023, I think it was, he kind of saw about 5 years as his off-ramping. And even then, he's like 40 years old, right? So that goes right in line with Kevin Harvick and so forth. But he made some comments on the download that he literally said, on his podcast, Actions Detrimental, just less than 2 weeks ago, or just a week ago, he said, what races like Daytona are what make drivers quit this blank. And there might be a frustration level with how things are going. He's changed crew chiefs again. And we all know that there's less ahead than there was before. He's in his 40s, but I just feel like there's in the next little while, we're going to have a clearer idea of what Denny Hamlin's doing. And this is some insurance on that. Maybe I'm totally wrong. And I want you to keep in mind too, loss of a very stable sponsor is another thing. When Denny Hamlin was close to losing the 11 ride in 2018, and what anchored him there was FedEx. Now, he has ultra performed since then. Multiple wins a year. So that I'm not saying they're looking to sack him or anything. Just you add all these little things together. A type of racing that he's liking less and less. The lawsuit with NASCAR, getting several years older. He talks about his recovery is a couple of days after races now. He has to go through a lot to recover. I just think that there could be something we're hearing sooner than later, and I have no inside knowledge. This is me reading the same stuff and looking at the same stuff that a lot of other people can.
Yeah, and maybe that does play a role into it because racing these cars takes a toll on you after a while, and maybe that adds to the claim a little bit that maybe Hamlin's time is closer to being up than rather later. So yeah. We'll see.
We'll see. For sure. It's a big deal for Corey. I have no doubt in the next couple of years he'll be a Cup driver. He needs to be. He should be there already. And there just hasn't been the right seat at the table. Denny Hamlin did say Corey had multiple opportunities to go Cup racing in a lesser situation and didn't do it. He stuck with Toyota. So
where do you think those opportunities came from?
There were front rows out there, things like that. I don't know. I mean, there couldn't have been that many. I thought for sure Corey Heim was a dead ringer slam dunk for the 19 car. How in the world did he no offense to Chase Briscoe. How in the world?
Well, I think Briscoe shows a little bit, nothing against Corey Heim, but at least in the Cup Series, Briscoe shows promise. I think I'm going to say this again. Briscoe's going to be legit this year. I think you see him pull off multiple wins.
Well, and so let's use that to get to that. And again, that was no rub on Briscoe. I just thought you got a
No,
Toyota
no.
driver in the pipeline. Briscoe could have gone to the Wood Brothers or to Front Row or something like that. How in the world did Corey Heim not get that opportunity? Or John Hunter Nemechek get a chance to graduate up or whatever, right? I thought Toyota would stay with Toyota, and they went out and that says a lot about Briscoe, that Joe Gibbs, even though they had plenty of development drivers, plenty of depth, in my opinion, plenty of depth, they went outside the Toyota Gazoo umbrella. It's called that, not TRD anymore. It's not turd, it's Gazoo. No, Gazoo. Okay. But they went outside of the Toyota umbrella to get the best person on the board, sort of like the Falcons signing Kirk Cousins and then drafting Michael Penix Jr., right? It's sort of the same thing. Okay, sort of. Now, let's get going, because you mentioned Chase Briscoe. The big 100-point penalty, 10 playoff points, loss of James Small for 4 races, all came down after Daytona. He was not disqualified from Daytona, however. So he won the Daytona pole. He ended up finishing 4th. He had a hand in causing the 2 biggest, most consequential crashes of the day, by the way, too. He did. And he wasn't the sole proprietor of those, but he was right in the middle of those. And anyway, Chase Briscoe loses 100 points. He entered Atlanta at minus 68 points. I think he got down to minus 50 something. And he ended up finishing Atlanta back toward the back. He got dinged up toward the end. He finished 21st, right behind Chase Elliott. Dev, you made a pretty bold prediction about Chase Briscoe this year that maybe makes this penalty and his playoff chances not so grim.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate, but it seems like the big time penalties follow him from Stewart Haas Racing, because he had a big penalty. He was 2 years ago after the Coke 600 in 2023 that really set him behind the 8 ball, and they just never did anything. But it's a big penalty. I mean, Doug, you and I right now, we're talking. The listeners listening or watching, we have more points than Chase Briscoe
What's
right
up,
now.
player?
And but I don't know. He's sitting at negative 51 points going into COTA. That's just something they're going to have to overcome, because he's 40th in the point standings. But he's been in this situation before. But he's in a lot better situation than he was at Stewart Haas Racing. Because let's be real here. If this was Stewart Haas Racing, his season is over at this point, unless he wins a race.
Basically, yeah. I mean, things do even out more, but he's basically like a driver that has missed 3 races or 4 races, to where you could technically come back and be right there on the edge. Like Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott missed 6 races, and he wasn't all that far away from getting in the playoffs and points in 2023.
And for a while, if you exclude the races you missed, he was top 10, basically.
Right, but that's what I mean, is that that your season's not over, but it's hard. It's like he missed 4 races, basically. And who has been suspended for 4 races? James Small. I think that was a calculated L1, or is it L3, whichever the high one is, a calculated penalty on that. I think it's weird he kept his finish, though. I mean, I know they offset it with
still in the negative. The penalty's a lot bigger than the DQ.
It is, but why don't you DQ him and give him? I don't understand why you keep the finish with an illegal car. It's like if he had won the race and kept the win and then gotten a 100-point penalty.
I'm just surprised they never caught it throughout that whole inspection process throughout the long Daytona 500 weekend.
That's another point of contention. Hey, I want to bring this into, and then we got to wrap this up. We're at a buck 23 now on the time. Parker Kligerman and Landon Castle co-host the Money Lap. Parker Kligerman lost his Daytona win. He was so emotional about it. He didn't record an episode after the Daytona 500 last week. They just skipped. They didn't do it. Henderson Motorsports, from that truck win, the truck being too low in the back, they protested the penalty for being disqualified and handed the win to Corey Heim. And they did a really good job of explaining how the penalty happened. And basically what it was, you wonder, how did Chase Briscoe get through all these inspections and not get penalized until going back to the NASCAR R&D Center? And so first off, with Briscoe, NASCAR they had to have been either tipped off or noticed something was wrong in that top 5 inspection when they decided to take him back to R&D. Okay. They had to, that maybe there wasn't something they could detect that with at the track, but they're like, that's weird. Or maybe another team said, that's weird. You noticed all the Gibbs cars qualified in the back at Atlanta. So, it may not have been just
Yeah.
Briscoe on the hook there for that bad boy, but he got caught. Now, here's how I related to this. The inspection is still an imperfect process. Parker Kligerman said that what happened with his part-time Henderson Motorsports team that has only one full-time employee is before the race, there's a certain procedure with the height of the front of the truck and the height of the back where you're allowed, after you do one thing, you're allowed to push down the front of the truck, and then it makes the back raise up in inspection. And his team did not know that in 2023, NASCAR had changed that protocol post-race. And so they did the same pre-race inspection. They thought, okay, well, I'll do this with the shocks and then that. And yeah, the back's low, but all I have to do is push down the front. NASCAR said, stop. We measure now. They measured it, and he was too low in the back. So that's how they didn't necessarily have an illegal truck. They just didn't know the protocol and post-race. And the only person that did know the protocol, Chris Carrier, the crew chief, was with Parker Kligerman in the media center doing post-race availability with the nacho-munching, pudgy media like us. That wasn't there, but, And if he had been out there, he probably would have been able to tell his team to do the right thing. But they didn't have enough people. And, in the end, he technically had an illegal truck by all measures, and they didn't ever measure it legally, so he lost. He lost the appeal. I just think, man, if you have part-time teams, it should be incumbent on NASCAR to make sure they have every one of these bulletins and not let them be their own worst enemy when it comes to something like that. But nonetheless, officiating, there we go. That's what it is. And in the end, they were illegal. So, Devin, coming up, Circuit of the Americas here, and they're chopping off part of the course. Have you looked at the new course or paid much attention to it there? Have you got any takes on that?
I still wish they raced on the old course because it's F1. Let compete NASCAR against F1 a little bit. Let's go. Let's do it. But it's going to be an interesting weekend there. You got no more trucks there, but you still got Cup and Xfinity, and you got IMSA. So I highly advise anybody that's in Texas, go to – how often do you get to see an IMSA NASCAR crossover weekend?
That's cool. And I think they've got the vintage cars there, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, practice and qualifying for the Xfinity series. Practice and qualifying for Xfinity are at 4 and then 5 p.m. So they're going to have an actual full-blown practice session, much like Daytona. Because it's a new track
on Friday,
4 and 5 p.m. I won't be there. I won't even be on the airplane yet at 4 and 5 p.m. Friday, unfortunately. And then, whoops, I'm sorry. Make sure I got that right. Hold on. Yeah, that's Friday. Okay, now, hold on. I'm trying to get to Saturday, and then it went straight to Sunday. So hold on a second. 1 second. Okay, there we go. Saturday. There it is. Excuse me, guys. Real professional of me. There's Cup practice Saturday starting at 10 a.m. And there are 2 Cup practices, 10 and 10:45. There's Group 1, 20 minutes, Group 2, 20 minutes, basically. And then they have Cup qualifying starting at 11:30 on Saturday. Then there's the Xfinity Series race Saturday at 1:30. And now, you sure IMSA's there? I think they're using the IMSA course. Did you see that there's I don't see on here that there's an
IMSA VP Racing Sports Car Challenge.
Okay, so it's not the full IMSA then.
No, but
it's a
crossover event.
Okay.
Though.
All right, so I don't know much about that. Do you have any more on that? Or okay, but it's not the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series that raced at Daytona. Okay, no. So it's a different, but still, you get to see more.
The 45-minute race they're having after the Xfinity
Correct.
race,
and that'll be at 5 p.m. Xfinity at 1:30. I love that. Xfinity at 1:30, so we could get out of there at a decent time. All right. Xfinity 1:30, that VPRC race there at 5 p.m. Sunday's race will be at 2:30 p.m. Now, these times are all local track times. So actually, I saw all these times. These are all central time. So 3:30 race start on Sunday, 2:30 race start Eastern time for the Xfinity Series on Saturday. And then, of course, the Cup qualifying, all that, it's going to be on, 11 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. for practice and qualifying back-to-back there on Saturday. So big-time stuff. But Xfinity, much like in Atlanta, will get all their qualifying and such out of the way there on Friday in the evening. But looking forward to it. I will be in this new layout where turn 6, basically, which used to just kind of run up the hill until you eventually got to that big shoehorn corner or whatever, that big 45-degree angle turn 10, that whole top of the track's cut off. Turn 6 is as far out as you get, and then there's a cut through that goes from 6 across to where midway through the back straightaway. And that turn 6 could be a hard left-hander. Turn 7 that Pat Patterson will call will be another hard left-hander, and there's going to be some action in those turns. Very similar course to what the V8 supercars ran when Shane Van Gisbergen was there. And if there's anything I could think of, Devin, that Shane Van Gisbergen needs, it's another advantage on road courses. I mean, if we got to give,
it's going to be something interesting to watch out for this weekend. For
but
sure.
they're good. They create another passing zone. They made these laps, closer to a minute and a half instead of 2.5 minutes, or closer to 2 minutes to 3.5 minutes, or whatever it is. And I'm looking forward to it. I did hear Noah Gregson say on Door Bumper Clear this week that there, at least on the simulator, are not a lot of good sight lines. There's not a lot of visual cues to use for that, and that's going to make it difficult to navigate. But that will be coming up here Saturday and Sunday, and we'll wrap it up right here on the 5 to Go podcast. So we covered Atlanta. We both are in agreement. One of the must-see races on the Cup Series schedule. We look forward to what's coming up in June. We definitely think it raced better and made us more excited than the Daytona 500 did. We have varying opinions on the cautions, but we both agree there needs to be every attempt to try to have these races finish under green, which I do think they're giving. We have some interesting thoughts of Corey Heim and Chase Briscoe and Carson Hocevar. And now we get to our final thoughts at hour and 31 minutes here. Dev, you got any?
Just looking forward to COTA this weekend. It's going to be exciting there. You got Xfinity Cup and UNG women's and men's basketball wrapping up the regular season as the women's team is set to host the Peach Belt Conference tournament this weekend with North Georgia, Peach Belt Conference tournament next week, not this weekend. That's next week.
Gotcha. Next week.
But anyways, fans, get your tickets to COTA. Go support COTA. Great. From what I've heard, a great facility. I know you've been there numerous times.
I've been there 3 times.
I think you've been there almost every time.
I've been there all but one time that they've raced since 2021 over there. So that's
but
a lot of fun. It's you can eat off the ground there when there hadn't been a rattlesnake somewhere. No, you can eat off the ground there. I mean, it really is a spotless place.
Let me ask you, since the Xfinity race is early in the day and then you guys got nothing to do, are you going to go out downtown Austin Saturday
I'm going
to
go wherever PRN people will take me because I don't have a rental car and I don't want to Uber anywhere if I can help it. So, I'm hoping that we'll go at least get dinner somewhere cool, and I would love to just go see a little more of Austin. I'm not going to get to Friday night. I'm coming in like 10 p.m. Friday. So Saturday is my shot, and then Sunday the race will end a little bit late, and I've got to wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning to go to the airport and fly back to Atlanta so I can work on Monday. So that's,
what time you land on Monday?
At 8:45 in the morning, and I'm hoping to get here by 12 noon to my full-time job at Impact Partnership in Kennesaw, Georgia, so I can start recording my podcast, and I'll be recorded for like 3 straight hours as soon as I get back. So that'll be big. I hope my voice isn't shot. Hey, my final thought before I get to it, I meant to mention a lot of entry list change on the Xfinity Series. No surprise that being a road course. I want to run down some drivers you'll see in cars. I'm sorry, we're really going long here, but I wanted to make sure it gets said. Alex LeBay is going to be in the 07 for SS Greenlight Racing. Ross Chastain will be with Junior Motorsports, okay, number 9, and not locked into the race either, by the way. 3 cars will go home on this one. Garrett Smithley will not be in the 14, even though he's supposed to run full time. His sponsors will be on the 14 for SS Greenlight, and that's Chevrolet, but it will be Carson Hocevar driving it, getting a little more road racing experience there at Circuit of the Americas. And then the first of 16 races for car number 17, owned by Hendrick Motorsports, will run in the Xfinity race on Saturday. This time it'll be William Byron, also not locked in. I'm not worried about it. I think he'll be okay. All right. Riley Herbst will be in the number 19 for Joe Gibbs. And they've had 3 drivers at 3 races this year. Justin Bonsignor, Eric Almirola, now Riley Herbst. Corey Heim will make his season debut in Xfinity. First of several races for Sam Hunt Racing in the number 24. Austin Green, Trans Am Road Racing ace, got a top 10 in this race, I believe, a year ago. He'll be in the Jordan Anderson number 32. Devin, I know you got this guy's T-shirt. Baltazar Leguizamon from Argentina. Will be in the Joey Gase number 35. The only Xfinity race he attempted, he missed, and that was at COTA in 2023. The number 45, I emailed Tommy Joe Martins of Alpha Prime Racing. It was listed as to be announced, and the 45 will be Brad Perez, who's been a spotter and mechanic of the sport for a long time. Has a cult following there. Brad Perez, number 45. Preston Pardis will be in the 50. Joey Gase's number 53 is to be announced. They did not answer my email asking who would be in it. Thomas Annunziata will be in the Cope Family Racing number 70. He's sharing that ride with Leland Honeyman this year. Josh Balicki will be in the number 91. So watch out for those. I would say especially Byron, Austin Green, maybe Corey Heim, Ross Chastain, even Hocevar. They can make some noise in this race. Also, too, another thing for my news sheet I need to point out, Adam Stern, Sports Business Journal, reporting that the Clash is likely back at Bowman Gray in 2026 after all the hype there. I'm sure they'll get at least one or two more spins on that quarter-mile Winston-Salem track. And my final thought has to go with the only open car running in the Cup Series this weekend, number 87, Connor Zilisch. See, I've been dead and determined ever since he came onto the scene last year that it was Zilisch. There's an S in it. I've said it on here like an angry old man waving my fist at fast traffic in my front yard. And then I saw him in the Cup Garage, and I've looked it up, and I hear everybody saying Zilisch, thinking, are we just people copying each other, and it's kind of like we're gaslighting the world by saying Zilisch? Well, I saw him coming out of the Cup Garage Saturday, ran up to him and said, hey, I'm Doug Turnbull from PRN. I'm not trying to interview you. I just want to ask real fast, is it Zilisch or Zilisch? And he goes, Zilisch. And I said, dadgummit. And then his PR guy said, yeah, I make the same mistake a lot too. So I want to come clean to my race fans. Our race fans of 5 to go. I'm sorry. I've been saying it wrong. I've been acting all pompous. It's Zilisch. Okay. Number 87. And you think, Dev, that he's running the 87 with the Project 91 team. Because why? Why is he running 87 instead of 91?
He's not an international driver.
He's not an international driver. There you go. He's a NASCAR driver. There it is. All right. Thank you all for listening very much. We wish Dan could have been here today. His phone service was not allowing that. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you like something, send a review too. I don't know if we have any of those, or not very few if we do. And share it with people that you know, right? We try to go a little bit deeper than some podcasts and not sound like the others. Sometimes we do sound like the others, and we get that access at the racetrack too. So thank you for listening to 5 to Go. Devin, I want to say to you, thank you for your hard work this weekend, man. You kept long hours in the media center rendering those graphics. I appreciate you, bud.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
You do a great job with that. Thanks to all of you for listening, and to the drivers that cooperated with us there, and especially William Byron. Check out that last episode, the bonus one with William Byron 101. He's Devin Kupka. I'm Doug Turnbull. I'll have my musings from on the grounds and Circuit of the Americas on Performance Racing Network this weekend, where you can catch all of the NASCAR action there on GoPRN.com, the NASCAR app. Local affiliates are Sirius XM 90. And thank you for listening to 5 to Go.